a lot of producers, and I get emails all the time from people who will give up, well, they get into music because they enjoy making music, which is understandable, but eventually they get to a point where they just keep starting new projects and not finishing them because they reach this point in a project where it stops becoming that enjoyable or it becomes difficult. What advice would you give to those people to overcome that kind of hurdle or that point in a track where it starts becoming hard?
First thing that comes to mind is just how exactly you're like building the ideas. When I'm working with some people, like they'll build a few ideas and then they'll try and arrange the track, and then when they think about it, they've only got like maybe 3 or 4 elements, and they've tried to arrange the track at the wrong time, and then they end up losing a bit of steam because they're trying to piece a bit of a bass line in, or they're going back to the melody, or so what I think works for me anyway, I can only really speak for what works for me in the studio, is building like the busiest part of the track first before even looking at the arrangement. Sounds very simple, but for me, if you've got all the elements, like all of the bones, so I'm talking, you've got a solid kick drum, you've got your sub bass nailed in, you know what your bass line's doing for the driving part, you know what it might be doing if it's moving. You've got your melodies down, your structure, you've got your hi-hats, everything's sitting really nice, sitting nice and tight. When it's at that point, I've already built the arrangement in my mind. If that makes sense. So when it actually comes to the arrangement, I already know, and I'm much quicker at arranging because I've built it in my mind. So it's like, to come back to the mind game, if you can really practice that method, I think that's the method I try and use, and it does work most of the time. It's like build it in your mind first before it's actually there, before you actually arrange it, because I think people just trip up when they try and arrange things and they've not actually got the picture.
Yeah.
So that's probably what I'd say to that. That certainly helps me there. Build as much of it as you can in your mind first, and then when you actually physically do the work, it falls into place.
And what about for people who struggle to come up with ideas in the first place? What advice would you give to them?
Well, they've got to question what they're doing firstly, because if they've came to produce music in the first place, then they've surely had ideas at one point. Whether their ideas are stimulated from other music, they can listen to other types of music. I like to listen to some classical piano, or some like ballads from the 90s and stuff, just to take my mind right out of it, just to get some new ideas. So if that can stimulate ideas, or hearing like a sample from something brings new ideas. Going for a walk into like a natural habitat for me is huge for ideas, and that's because, again, it comes back to that connection. Again, if you're sitting in front of laptops and staring at a grid, or staring at numbers or faders or whatever, then sometimes that's not where your mind feels most relaxed. So a little walk sometimes for ideas. If you're really, really struggling for ideas, I'd say get out and go for a walk.